Hi, guys. Welcome back to Talk Dodgers to Me. This is episode 12, and I have such an exciting guest for you today. I don't even need to tell you who she is. You know her, you love her, but we know her from being on the broadcast team with the Dodgers for 7 years, and now she's been a part of the MLB network and does a show with Foul Territory called Dodgers Territory. We have Alanna Rizzo today. So I'm so excited to talk to her and share our interview with you. So enjoy. So I went to the Women in Sports event at Dodger Stadium last year.
Okay.
And I'm a huge Dodger fan. I'm from New Jersey. I moved
Okay.
on my own, just a girl with big dreams,
For you.
and have always loved baseball. And the Dodgers became my team. And over the years of finding like-minded people like me, found myself at that event. And really, it was the girls there that listened to me talk so passionately that really gave me the confidence to just start a baseball podcast. And you were my number one person I wanted to talk to. So I
Oh,
really
thank you. I appreciate that. Now, did you grow up as a Yankee fan, as a baseball fan, or did you always like the Dodgers?
I knew nothing about the Dodgers until I moved here.
Okay.
I come from a big baseball family.
Okay.
My dad was one of 8, and his parents were diehard Phillies fans. So
Oh, from
it
Jersey,
was
that makes sense, I guess. I guess it depends what side of Jersey you're on, whether
well,
you're
they
Philly.
were on South Jersey, and then they raised their kids in northern New Jersey. And out of the 8, we have Phillies fans, Giants fans, only Dodger fan,
Hmm.
Mets fans. Although my family that are Mets fans hates the Mets, but I guess that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, that's definitely a typical Met fan.
But I mean, coming here when Kirsch was starting really is why I became a Dodger fan.
Oh, wow. Very good. Well, that's awesome.
But
That's
I'd
great.
love to know just more about you. Where did your connection to baseball start?
It's funny. I didn't grow up a baseball fan. I grew up born and raised in Colorado, and I didn't have Major League Baseball in Colorado until 1993 because the Rockies were an expansion team in 93. So I was definitely more of a football fan growing up. My whole family is very much Broncos fans growing up in Denver. And so I didn't, I was a senior in high school when the Rockies got to Colorado. So I remember watching their first ever game. I was in my accounting class as a senior in high school, and our accounting teacher, who was also the boys basketball coach, let us like watch the game. It was a day game, and he rolled the TV in, and we were able to watch the game. And I'll never forget that. I mean, it was at the old Mile High Stadium before Coors Field was even built. And it was, it was pretty cool to be able to witness. I mean, there was 70,000, 80,000 people there because there was a football stadium where they played.
Mhm.
So then I went to college, and I just never, didn't give it that much thought. And I didn't actually get into baseball until I was trying to get back to Colorado for journalism. I had gone to school at the University of Colorado. I got a Bachelor of Science in International Business with a marketing emphasis, and I worked in sales and marketing for 5 years. And then I was just really bored. It was something I was not passionate about. I just didn't get any joy out of it. And I thought to myself, like, I kind of had an epiphany. If I could do anything, what would it be? And for me, it was sports. I've always been a sports fan, and I've always participated in it, and obviously been a spectator of most of them. And I said, if I could do anything, what would it be? So I went back to school at CU Boulder. I got a master's in journalism, and then I just started from the bottom up. So I completely switched gears. I didn't even go back to school
Wow.
to get my master's until I was 28. So it's never too late to follow, what your true passion is. So started off in, Wichita Falls, Texas, which was market 142 out of 200 markets, and just kind of worked my way up. So I left Colorado, basically started making nothing at the bottom in Wichita Falls, Texas. And then I was there for 9 months. Felt like 9 years. But I did meet one of my best friends to this day was from there. So that was the reason I was there, I guess. And then I went, you just start working your way up to bigger markets with more responsibility and more viewership. So it was basically CBS in Wichita Falls, Texas, then the CBS affiliate in Madison, Wisconsin. I was there for 3 years, and then I got the opportunity to come back to Denver which I wanted to come home. And that was as a freelancer, no
Mhm.
guaranteed work, but as a freelancer to come work for, at the time, it was Fox Sports Rocky Mountain. Now they don't even have a freaking station there. I mean, it's gone through so many different changes. But that's where I started covering baseball. So I was just a freelance reporter at the end of 2007. And then I was freelance all of 2008. And then they made me full-time as a full-time employee in 2009. So I covered the Rockies 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I left in 12 to go to MLB Network. So I went from Denver to New York / Jersey, Secaucus. And then, I was at MLB Network for 2 years. Then the Dodgers started their brand new network, Sportsnet LA, and they
Mhm.
called and asked if I wanted to be a part of it. And they really wanted to get a very, well-known broadcast team together to get this network off the ground. So they went after all national people. Of course, that's when of course, they still had Vin, which goes without saying.
Mhm.
Then they brought in Oral Hershiser, Nomar Garcia-Parra, myself. They had Jerry Hairston. And that was the first, and John Hartung is, the studio host still. And that was the broadcast team. I was there from, 2014 all the way through the end of the World Series. And then I left there in 2021 to move back to the East Coast. And I started my second stint with MLB Network. So I've been at MLB Network now. This is my 4th year back, but my 6th year total with the network, just in a completely different capacity. So it's just been a
Wow.
lot of, you got to pay your dues, and it's a lot of
Mhm.
moving. It's a lot of, having to pick up and leave and go state to state. And, it's important to see, it's important to pay your dues because everybody wants to do what we do, but not a lot of people realize the path that it takes or the sacrifices that have to be made, or some of the challenges that come with being in this industry. But I mean, I've been doing this for 20
Totally.
years. It's definitely been worth it.
Well, I was, reading a bit about you before you came on, and I'm sure even leaving the Dodgers and making that move must have been such a tough decision.
It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in
And
terms of like professional stuff, because I loved that job and I loved the Dodgers, and I definitely felt like a part of the family, and I was there for 7 years, and it's the longest I've ever been in one position. And I love that team. I still do. I mean, they're definitely my team. And there was no reason to leave professionally, but there was a lot
Mhm.
of reason to leave personally. So my husband started, his job changed, and he wasn't going to be traveling. That we weren't married at the time, but he wasn't going to be traveling as much, and he lived on the East Coast. I lived on the West Coast, and it was just, it was difficult to find any, commonality in terms of time we could see each other. And I mean, I could have been the Dodgers host and reporter for the rest of my life and would have been fine. I loved living in, California. It's the best place I ever lived, where I lived. And I mean, for me, it was the best place. But it was like, at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? And this is the first time in my career that I could have some work and life balance. Still when I left LA, I didn't know what I was going to be doing professionally, but I knew I
Oh,
wasn't
so you
done.
didn't have
No, I
any
didn't have
job set
MLB
up.
yet. Nope, I didn't have MLB yet. I didn't have the network yet.
Wow, that's
So that
amazing.
was crazy. It was crazy, but I
And then it
left.
kind of came full circle because you are back talking about the Dodgers, but
Yeah. So I
more
left.
like a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I left in February 2001, and then I basically auditioned for High Heat in March of that same year, and I got it. And this is our 4th year now. Chris Russo, it's his show
Mhm.
that I contribute
Oh, I
on.
watch it.
And so this is our 4th year together. And then yeah, I mean, I've been friends with the Foul Territory people. Mark Weiner and Scott Braun launched Foul Territory, and Scott
Mhm.
and I got hired the same exact day at MLB Network the first time, and Mark was the guy that hired us. So when Mark
Oh, okay.
Scott left MLB Network, I've known them since 2012. Well, actually since 2011, when this whole process started for the first time at MLB Network. So when they started that territory, that channel,
Mhm.
um, in touch with them, and then they're expanding it, and now they're wanting to do more on that platform and stuff. And so Dodgers territory came up, and they're like, because I wanted to do a podcast, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I didn't have an ounce of idea of how to get started, and I still don't. But they're like, would you be interested in just doing a Dodgers focused podcast? I'm like, of course. So Clint Pasillas, who does the All Dodgers podcast,
Yeah.
he's obviously my co-host. He does a great job. He's very in tune with what's going on with the team. And now we have Dodgers territory, Northside territory for the Cubs. There's Hammerin territory for the Braves. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years, all 30 teams have some sort of territory on the Foul Territory platform as they increase, their scope and what they're able to do. So yeah, I get to do that, twice a week. And then I'm on Fair Territory with Ken Rosenthal on Thursdays. And then I've been hosting Foul Territory all week because Scott's been on vacation. So it's been crazy, but it's been good because I get to do everything from home. So I have the best of both worlds where I can still be in the industry and talk about baseball, which I love more than anything, but not have the rigorous like travel schedule, because being a team reporter that schedule is a beating. I mean, it's very, very challenging. So yeah, for now it's good. I'm really enjoying being a part of that whole platform.
Oh, I mean, even from when you started doing this, how baseball has evolved to have so many sports shows and podcasts and people talking about the game. What has it been like for you to watch the evolution of baseball? And now players like Mookie have a podcast and long form where we're getting to learn more about them, and the sport is growing. I love to watch it grow. How do you feel about that?
It's been insane. I mean, when I first started, when I graduated back in 2001, 2003, the podcast wasn't a thing. Like nobody had ever heard of a podcast, and social media wasn't a thing, and like none of this stuff. I mean, the way that folks go about getting jobs now in the industry is completely different than what we went through back in the day. It's so much different now and more mainstream and easier in terms of technology and that type of stuff.
Yeah, you can work from home and be doing what you love.
I wouldn't have this job if it wasn't for COVID, because all of a sudden in COVID, then everybody had to be remote, and they were creating ways to still be able to bring people content and still have talent, but to be able to do it in what we thought at the time was a safe way to go about it. So yeah, I mean, if there's one good thing to come out of COVID for me, it was the fact I had this job, and I still, we can do everything remotely. So yeah, I mean, the technology and the setups and the studios that people have in their houses. And yes, I think podcasts and my strength, I think, is long form interviews, which I don't get to do really now. I used to do it at MLB Network. The first time I was there, and also all the connected with the Dodgers when I was in LA, just like sit down long form interviews. And I think podcasts, depending upon the format, provide that avenue and that platform to really be able to get to know guys. And I think it's so important for like Mookie to create that brand, and he's not just a baseball player. I mean, he's a business owner, he's an entrepreneur. He's only going to be a baseball player for a very a very minute amount of time. And of course, over the course of his whole life, it's a small percentage of his life in terms of actually being a baseball player. So it's good for these guys to branch out and find other things that can be money streams and other things that can provide them interest, because baseball is fleeting. It doesn't last that long.
Well, I love that, even just setting themselves up for success after the sport. And I love to listen to the questions that he's asking someone that he watches and admires. I'll say I'm on base with everything about what Mookie is doing besides him wearing sunglasses in the interviews.
Yeah. I've seen clips, like bits and pieces. I haven't sat down and like listened to a whole thing. But yeah, I mean, again, Mookie's a brand, he's a force. He's doing a lot of different things. And you see a lot of guys doing that now, trying to just branch out and be. And baseball, I think the sport has evolved to where we want to see their personality, right? We don't want them to just be robots and, just be who they are on the field. I always try to tell people, they're humans before they're players, right? They're people before they're players. And, it's what he's doing is good. I mean, he has the personality for it. There's some guys that like just don't, that's just not what they do. But I love, like, you get more out of guys when another player asks them a question, right? Versus asking them a question. So
I mean, he got Clayton Kershaw to do an interview. He got Freddie Freeman. We rarely hear long form about those guys. And really that's why I connect to baseball. I love to learn about the people, and then I love to learn about their game. So things like that are really cool to me. So since you weren't like a huge baseball fan to begin with and kind of grew into it, what made you become such a big fan of the Dodgers while you were working there and learning
I
about the
mean, I
organization and all they're doing?
I think for me, the only reason I became a baseball fan is because it was my entry to get back to Denver. If I'm being honest, like when I got the job with the Colorado Rockies, covering the Rockies through Fox Sports, Rocky Mountain. Again, it was as a freelancer, but I knew the baseline of baseball. I certainly didn't know the intricacies and the strategies and anything in depth about the sport. I didn't know. I mean, Aaron Cook was their ace. I didn't even know what a sinker ball pitcher was at the time, and that's what he was. He was a sinker ball guy, and so it was a huge, huge learning curve. But that was my way back to Colorado, and I wanted to get home. And I thought, I was going to stay there forever, but I also wanted the opportunity to be national too. So yeah, it was a huge learning curve, but baseball was not my first choice. But then I went, I did the Rockies for 5 seasons, and I went to MLB Network, and then it just became everything that I did, and it opened up so many different worlds for me and opportunities, and things I would have never done before. I mean, I got the amount of travel and the different people I've met and the places that we've gone, and I've covered the sport, many different countries, and 3 different countries and 2 different continents, and that type of stuff, and just the stories that you get to tell and the people that you get to meet. And now I cannot imagine my life without baseball. It didn't start out that way though. But now it's like it's everything to me. So it wasn't necessarily planned, but I can't imagine my life any other way now.
Hmm. Well, I always think that, things happen for a reason. And I had no idea that I would ever start a baseball podcast, but that's kind of where life was taking me. And I was talking about it all the time. And I'm really someone that dives into all of her passions. Um, I've had a couple different career moves like you, and took chances and kind of understood more of why things were happening as time went on, which now I kind of can have more patience for just allowing things to unfold instead of being so worried about it.
Mhm.
But why the Dodgers? Why do you love the
Well, because I
organization
mean,
and the
again,
team?
the Sportsnet LA gave me the opportunity because I really missed being with the team. I missed being at the field every day. And when you were at MLB Network, you're like in a studio and you're so far removed, and you don't really have a pulse of what's going on with the team. I mean, you can guess, you can speculate, you can pontificate about stuff, but unless you're in that clubhouse every single day, you really have no idea what's going on with the team. And I missed that, and I missed the sights and sounds of the ballpark and just being a part of a team. And then when they called and talked to me about it, and then I went, and they treated me like family. Like I was a team employee, not a network employee, which is a huge difference. When I
Okay.
was at the Rockies, I was a network employee, and I never quite felt like I was part of the team. But I was a Dodgers employee, and I was part of the team. I was part of that family, and it's just a first class organization. Everything that the Dodgers do is first class, and it's well done. And I was there for 7 years. I got to know that organization inside and out. It's the longest time I've ever spent anywhere in any one job. And I still consider that team family. I mean, I felt like every day that I was there, it was like I was part of, I mean, you're with them more than you're with your own family. We get spring training basically Valentine's Day, and we don't leave until the postseason's over, and we see each other every single day. So, that's just I just love them, and I love the way that they treated me. And it's just a first class organization for sure.
Absolutely. What do you say to baseball fans who hate on the Dodgers and the big market spending and that they're paying to win and things like that? I find myself getting into fights with people and trying to have their defense, but then I'm one that doesn't like to speak if I don't know everything about something. So I'm so happy to have this opportunity to learn from you and gain some more knowledge. Like, what would you say to someone when that's all that their argument is?
Well, I think money doesn't buy championships; it buys really good players. But
Which we've seen from,
just because
the
you
Dodgers
have
history.
boatload of money does not mean it's going to guarantee you a championship. And I tell this to people all of the time. This is it's like, I get so tired of this argument that the Dodgers buy championships. Well, you know what? The
Me
Yankees have
too.
money than the Dodgers do, and they haven't, won a World Series since 2009. I understand the frustration from small market teams, and there's just some teams that can't compete. But I do know that there's not one owner in this game that can't spend money. They may choose not to spend money, but it doesn't mean that they can't spend money. There is not a team in this league that loses money. There's not an owner in this league that's not making a profit. And if you think the players make a lot of money, just think about how much the owners make. Anybody that tells you that Shohei Ohtani isn't worth $700 million doesn't realize that the owners are getting $2.8 billion in return for signing Shohei to a $700 million deal, because they basically think whatever their contract is going to be, the owners are going to make 4 times the amount. Or owners are not stupid people. They're business people.
Mm-hmm.
They're in it to make money, obviously. What is a great owner is an owner that will spend money and wants to win. That's not necessarily a guarantee. We have an owner that wants to win and that spends money. I think the Orioles now have an owner that wants to win and will spend money. The Mets have an owner that wants to win and spend money. The Yankees do as well. The Cubs could spend money. We'll see if they do. Every single owner could spend money if they wanted to. And right now, almost every single team, minus the Marlins and the Rockies, are within like 3 games of making a wild card spot. So if you really care about winning, you will spend the money to kind of complement whatever you have. But yeah, I know the argument, and I get it. And I understand why people hate the Dodgers. You either love them or you hate them. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. But just because they spend a boatload of money means nothing. If you don't have a good team that plays for each other, you can have the highest paid payroll in the history of the sport. You can have the best players in the world. The 2014 team, I felt like, was a lot of that, where there were superstars, but nobody played for each other. Everybody wanted the spotlight. And that was a tough clubhouse. That was my first year there. It was a very tough clubhouse in terms of like dealing with personalities and culture. And then when the new front office came in and the new ownership group came in, that changed quickly. And they signed, for the most part, I questioned a couple of their signings, but for the most part, they signed quality guys, and it matters when you're playing for the guy next to you and not for just yourself. It makes a difference. So yeah, my argument to that is that's fine. That's a tired argument. Everybody says that, but it doesn't guarantee anything other than you just have a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, and you have to know how to spend your money well. I think, looking at the Mets and how they spend their money,
I mean, I'm not giving the amount of money that he gave to Verlander and to Scherzer. I mean, they're old pick, they're both Hall of Famers, but I'm not. But again, if he has more money than God, he was a new owner. Now he's in his 4th year. It's like you want to show and he actually grew up a Yankee fan, not a Met fan. But you want to show your fan base that I'm willing to spend money. I'm willing to do this. And I don't doubt that the Mets will figure it out. I questioned very much the firing of Buck Showalter.
I hope they do. I really do. I have a family of Mets fans that it is really hard to talk to them and try and lift their spirits. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to pep them up about it, and they're just like, yeah, this is what it's like to be a Mets fan.
The guys like playing for Carlos Mendoza, but Buck Showalter's a Hall of Fame manager. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, it's very difficult to win. But if you have an owner that's at least trying, I think that's, at least palpable. Fans can deal with that. Then just sit there's a very good chance that the Pittsburgh Pirates could make the postseason with Jones and Skeens. I mean, they need a bat, though. They need a bat. Do you go after a Luis Robert Jr. from the White Sox? Do you go after Pete Alonso if the Mets aren't going to sign him for a long-term deal? I don't know, but try to get somebody, show that you're trying to win. And that's a great sports town. Pittsburgh's an awesome sports town.
Also, the stadium looks beautiful.
That's my favorite.
A place that I really want to go to.
You have to.
Someone posted a video from this beautiful angle of Freddie Freeman's 3-run home run when we played them last week. And I was just in awe. Like, I wanted to just hop on a plane and just go check it out now.
It's my favorite park of all 30. It's gorgeous. And I think Pittsburgh is a very underrated city. And if you go there, you have to go to the Roberto Clemente Museum. I mean, it honestly, in my 20 years of covering baseball, the trip to the Roberto Clemente Museum has to be in top 5 all-time off days. I mean, it's just awesome. It's really, really, really cool.
I will write that down. Well, speaking of that series, and even just like where we were then to where we were now, my podcast is 1 week behind baseball. So I was editing the episode that's coming out this week, and I am, not feeling good about the Dodgers. They weren't hitting those first two games. I'm wondering if they forgot how to hit a fastball. And then we go into the Yankee series, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I was jumping up and down, having the time of my life those first two games. So I'm wondering, now that I'm talking to fans so much on social media and they're getting involved in what I'm talking about, we're overreacting so much on a daily basis when there's 162 games. And then there's the postseason. So it's going to change so much. There's ebbs and flows in baseball. It's hot and cold. What would you say to like people like me who are freaking out last week? And then I'm putting out the podcast when we just had a home run derby yesterday.
Yeah, it's, I mean, that's the job of a fan, right? That's why fans are called fanatics, and they have the right to do that. That's what makes sports so much fun, is because you can be unrealistic as a fan. You can not make sense as a fan. You can be delusional as a fan. That's okay. I mean, that's what makes this game great. I still think that there's I needed the Dodgers to show me something when they went into New York, and they did. I mean, Gavin Stone really, really impressed me. Yamamoto impressed me. I mean, I think the question was, oh, can Yamamoto pitch in a big game? I think he answered that question. I mean, he very easily could have been a Yankee, and he wanted to come to LA because he wanted to play with Shohei. But I think that he really had a really strong outing there. And obviously Gavin did as well. Tyler Glasnow, he did. You get a guy that gets up to the plate that's hitting 0.83 and hits a 3-run home run. Like, probability says that's not going to happen, but that's the game. Sometimes that stuff happens. But Glasnow, to me, has been every bit of what they would have hoped when they signed him. He's phenomenal. And I think he just, his win-loss record doesn't reflect it because he hasn't gotten the best run support when he's been on the hill. But I still think the Dodgers definitely need help in the bottom of the order. That's not, you can't, we are very, very top heavy. Well, when it goes through, obviously with Mookie and Freddie and Shohei and Will Smith, and then obviously Teoscar Hernandez has been way better than I ever gave him credit for. And then when Muncy gets back in the lineup, that's strong. But the bottom, the 7, 8, 9 hole is not good at all. So I am concerned about that. I mean, Lux isn't hitting, Kike's not hitting, Taylor's not hitting, Outman's back in AAA, Andy Pajes can't be the second coming of the Messiah. I mean, the guy has a cup of coffee in the big so far. So I'm worried about that. I'm interested in this whole Kevin Biggio situation, because
I wanted to ask you about him. He seems like we already have him. We've got a lot of him.
Yeah, we have a lot of him. But sometimes the one thing the Dodgers are really good about is letting guys be themselves and turning mediocre, or not mediocre. That's not fair.
I wonder what they know, what they're thinking of how they can help him, because they do that so often. And that's one of the reasons why I love them so much. They really can turn players around and find what they're really good at and build their confidence. So yeah, I am curious what they're thinking about him specifically, and what you do with a guy like Gavin Lux or a Chris Taylor, who people are really talking about right now, but he has a contract. So I'm sure they're not going to do anything with him.
It depends. I mean, they're not going to hold on to a guy forever. I mean, that's another thing about a team having a lot of money. I mean, if they really feel like, unfortunately, and I love Chris, but if they feel like, they're going to be a better team by bringing somebody else in and having to eat that contract, then they're going to do it. It's not the Reds. They can eat the contract. And I hate that for him, because he's the guy that has had some huge moments for the Dodgers when it mattered the most. And same thing with Kike. Same thing with Kike. I love Kike.
I would be heartbroken if they both left. But another thing that has kind of been a theme of my podcast, which, things just come out, and that's now become a talked about topic across, this is episode 12. It's almost like the reasons why I love the Dodgers, the player development, how well they take care of the players on and off the field, how much they care, how loyal they are. It doesn't seem like that is specifically translating to creating the fire under them that they need to win, and almost like playing angry. And I'm wondering if making those tough decisions to bring in someone else, I often wonder, are the Dodgers too nice?
No. The Dodgers want to win, and you can't play angry. You can't play with that type. Like, baseball's too much of a mental mind game to play like that. It's a business first and foremost, and they're loyal to a certain point. There are organizations that are way, like the Rockies are loyal to a fault. Like they always promote from within, and it's always been the same voice, and they rarely go outside of the organization. And I think it just, that's why the Rockies will, well, among other reasons, that's why the Rockies will never really win anything. But the Dodgers will do the right moves. And you also have to understand this is a team that is pretty much guaranteed to make the postseason every single year and pretty much guaranteed to win the division. So it's hard to play with that fire for 162 games. It's just too long. It's not a 17-game NFL season where you can play, ramming your head into the wall every week and being that it's just, baseball doesn't work that way.
I
And
guess
so
it
no,
does towards the end of the season, going into the postseason, because it really is the hot team that wins. Dodgers often are going into the postseason without having played a meaningful game sometimes in quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, you got it. Whatever it is, it's whoever's playing the best at the right time. And that's why I don't necessarily like, 3-game series and, having so many different wild card teams and, because you get a hot wild card team and it bounces a team that had 107, look at the year that the Dodgers didn't win the division. They lost it by 1 game to the Giants, and then the Giants had home field, and then the Dodgers beat them in the first round. That's not fair to the Giants. They had a 107-win season. Same thing with the Phillies and the Braves. The Braves win the NL East every year, and then they get bounced in a 3-game set by a wild card team that just happens to be super hot. So, I don't know what the answer is as far as the schedule is concerned, but it is definitely whoever is playing hot at the right time. But good pitching and good defense beats good hitting every day. So if you don't have good pitching, and if you don't have a really strong starting rotation and a really strong bullpen, because most of these games are close, you have no player in the postseason.
What are you hoping the Dodgers get at the trade deadline?
We need a left-handed bat that can hit. We need another back end of the bullpen piece. I mean, Evan Phillips has done a really good job, but the bullpen's decimated. Joe Kelly, obviously hurt. Bruce Dark-Gratterall, I don't even know if we'll see him this year. There's been a lot of guys that are hurt, both starters and relievers. If the season ended today, I don't know if I'm starting Walker.
Yeah.
If the season ended today, I'm starting Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto, and maybe Gavin Stone. And I never thought I'd say that. You don't know what you're going to get from a guy coming off of Tommy John surgery. And we're not sure what Kershaw's going to bring after his first surgery ever. I mean, I know he'll have a fresh arm, which is nice, and you really only need Kershaw in October. So they'll be fine without him until that point. But we need a bullpen piece, and we need a left-handed bat that can actually hit at the bottom of the order.
Definitely. And, watching Gavin Stone, it's so impressive. I feel like he has the perfect baseball mentality and like that calm, but also a bit of the fire when he's up on the mound. And honestly, I've had a lot of fun watching him, and he's been great.
Yeah, he's given, he's shown me something. I didn't know much about him. He was in the system, but I never normally, like, I'm the one that interviews the guys when they get drafted. I'm the one that interviews them for the first time when they get called up, but I've been gone now this is my 4th season. So I don't know Gavin well, but that New York series showed me a lot from him.
Yeah.
It really did. And, I was incredibly impressed. I think Alex Vezia has made tremendous strides.
Yes, he's been great this year.
Very, very good reliever for them. He's been really nice. And again, I think the biggest free agent signing for anybody was Teoscar. I mean, a 2-year deal for him, at that price was nothing. And
what are you feeling about everyone talking about extending his contract after he has one great
I'm not signing him to 5 years, but I think he is the outfield production for the Dodgers right now. Nobody else is. I mean, Jason Hayward doesn't play every day, but my point is, like, he is the only outfield because Mookie moved from right field to short. He is the Dodgers outfield production, and that's not good. I can't remember the last time we were talking about lack of outfield production. It had to have been before, like, Ethier and Kemp, and it's been a long time since the Dodgers outfield has been weak offensively.
Definitely. Speaking of Mookie, I know I've heard you talk about how you feel about him at shortstop. I feel like it's really motivating him, and even thinking about when he did the home run derby, like, he likes to challenge himself. And I wonder if they do sign a shortstop or decide to move him, is that going to hurt his ego?
These guys are, I don't know. I
You don't
don't, I
think
don't,
so?
and not Mookie. Like Mookie knows that he's got a place in the lineup every single day. Mookie knows that he has $1 billion contract and he keeps going the way he's going. He's in the Hall of Fame. No, I think for guys that are constantly looking over their shoulder, like, oh my gosh, am I going to get sent down, or am I going to get DFA'd, or am I going to get, less playing time? Those are the types of players that their ego's like, oh crap. Mookie's not only the best athlete in baseball, he's like probably one of the best athletes, period. So, and everyone keeps like blowing that out of proportion. I said, maybe the Dodgers say they make a mistake of moving him to short. I don't mind Mookie at short. I do think, though, in a short series, if you're in a short series in the postseason and you do make 2 errors in the infield, that's not something you can overcome in the postseason. In the regular season, when you have a 7, 8, 9, 10 game lead in the division, sure, it's not going to kill you. But in a 3-game, 5-game series, that's very difficult to overcome if you have an error or 2 in that series and you lose those games because of it. So
Right.
I like Miguel Rojas at short because of the experience. Is Miguel a better athlete than Mookie? No. Is Miguel a better shortstop than Mookie right now? Yes, just because of the experience. And that's not a knock. I mean, just look at Mookie asking Miguel questions. Look at Miguel teaching Mookie. So it's not about ego. It's about how can we, with the roster that we have, the roster that we've created, what's the best place to put these guys on the field to win that game every day? It's not disrespecting Mookie at short. It's just saying, okay, we might have a problem in the infield when it comes to the postseason, just based on that.
Miggy Rowe is just so fun to watch too. He made an awesome play at third yesterday. He's playing second, he's playing shortstop, and he's incredible every time he's on the field. So I really hope that they keep him out there more. One of the
like with Mookie, it's his defense, but he doesn't have, or with Miggy, it's his defense, but he doesn't have Mookie's bat. So it's like, you can't have 100 Freddie Freemans. Like Freddie Freeman's good defense.
Well, I think he's getting hot right now.
And he's also a really good hitter. There's not 70% of the, Hall of Famers fail 70% of the time. This is not an easy game.
It's even interesting listening to you talk right now, and I'm realizing how much I really am overreacting as a fan to everything.
We all do it. And
but we also need things to talk about every day because the baseball season is so long.
That's the fans' right. And of course we freak out about it. I was like, with that Pittsburgh series, I'm like, good Lord. But again, it's a 3-game series, and then they went to New York, and but look at how good the Kansas City Royals have been, and then the Yankees have just stomped them. So it just depends on. It's a long freaking season, and whoever is going to be the healthiest team in the postseason, and whoever is playing the hottest at the right time, that goes a long way.
Yeah, well, I think seeing our guys show up at Yankee Stadium and how well they did with, the hype of that series and being a playoff atmosphere, I loved seeing that, and that really kind of was my takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think these guys need any reason to be motivated. They don't need pep talks. They don't need. I mean, they're professional big leaguers. Like they don't need motivation. But yes, I do think it was, whether they want to say it is or not, I do think it's somewhat of a measuring stick to see how they fare again. I mean, there's nobody in the American League right now, minus the Orioles, that could probably give the Yankees a run for their money. So I mean, going into the Bronx and taking 2 or 3, that's a good weekend. That's a good series. So, but again, I don't think they're like, okay, guys, you can do this. Like they're big leaguers. They don't need that.
Yeah. Going back to Miggy Rowe for a minute, it's cool to see just how he is kind of coaching Mookie and becoming such a leader on the field. And he's even talked about, if I want to go into managing one day, this is going to be something that's really going to help me. And a player that I love, who we traded and I'm still kind of heartbroken about, is Justin Turner. And I kind of just came up with this in my head, but watching him leave was really hard. And the way that I've kind of justified it within myself is I could see him being an amazing manager one day, and having the opportunity to play for different teams, organizations, leagues, now in a different country. I wonder if that was kind of his journey to then gain all the knowledge and be able to relate to so many different players who with that experience to maybe become a manager one day.
Yeah, I definitely think JT will be a manager. We did not trade him. He was a free agent, and he wanted a multi-year deal, and the Dodgers weren't necessarily willing at that time to give him a multi-year deal. So that's why he ended up in Boston. And then he leaves
Oh,
after 1
okay.
year in Boston, and ends up with Toronto. So Justin's one of my favorite players. That we actually started with the Dodgers basically the same day. He was a non-roster invitee back in 2014. Ned Colletti, the former GM, who's a good friend of mine, invited him. Not really, he was a non-roster invitee, so he invited him to spring training with no guarantee that he was going to make the team, and he ended up making the team, the opening day roster, as the Dodgers second baseman, I think, coming out of that 2014 season. And I started that same year, and I remember being in the parking lot at Camelback Ranch, and when he found out that he made the team,
Oh, that's awesome.
then he ends up being one of the greatest Dodgers in recent memory. I know the Dodgers don't have captains, but Justin Turner was the captain, and Dave
Mhm.
Roberts said as much, that he was the glue that kept that team together. And he's a solid human being. He always posts. He could go 0 for 4, 4 for 4. He's always there to talk. He always stands up and represents and takes it. If he has a poor game or has a great game, he'll definitely manage. But I know for a fact that Justin would have loved to have ended his career as a Dodger and stay
Yeah.
there his whole career. But that wasn't in the cards for him, and he had a great year in Boston. He's having a down year in Toronto, but Toronto in general is having a down year.
Mhm.
But yeah, I could definitely see JT absolutely managing, no question about it.
I really hope that happens. Um, Speaking of that moment with Justin Turner and just being able to have those types of moments with the team and these players who you've grown to know, do you have players that you've gravitated towards and still keep in touch with?
The players that I appreciate the most are the guys that were always willing to do interviews. I mean, my job is so difficult. It's a lot of games, and it's a lot of, we did an hour pregame show, an hour postgame show, especially, day games after night games. It's like not much has changed from the final out to the first pitch. It's like, we still have an hour pregame show. I still have to talk to you guys. So people that understood that I had a job to do as well, and were
Mhm.
thoughtful in their answers and thoughtful with their time, those are my favorite players. I do have, I wouldn't say I have relationships with players. That's not the type. I'm not that, like, I'm not friends with them, that type of thing. I don't, we don't hang out, that type of stuff. But I definitely have a sincere respect for their space, their jobs, their time. And I know that they feel the same way about me. I would never go in the clubhouse and just linger or try to just be a
Mhm.
part of anything. I'd go in, do my job, get my sound, and get out. And I think they appreciate that. I learned, I got to the point in my career where I was standing at the top of the dugout at any dugout, and I could see the guys coming from the clubhouse. And just by the way that they walked and their shin, I knew who it was. I mean, that's how in tune you get with guys, like in tune of like, okay, I know this person, I know their routines. I knew when Justin Turner did his crossword puzzle, I knew exactly like when to talk to guys. There's certain guys I wouldn't talk to unless I really needed something and very specific. There's guys that I would go to for any subject because they'd be willing to talk. But like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't hit up Chase Utley or David Freese unless I really needed something specific. But like there's certain guys that are willing to talk all the time. It's just a matter of building relationships and building that trust and building that foundation. And it's like any relationship, it takes time, but I do feel, or at least I hope, that there's a mutual respect. When I left the Dodgers, Kershaw called me, and that like blew me away. I was like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
that type of stuff. Or he sent me a text, I think it was, that, good luck, congratulate, that type. I mean, that means a lot. When a first ballot Hall of Famer calls you to say that, he appreciated your work. I mean, I think there's nothing better than when somebody of that caliber appreciates what you do, because obviously I have a ridiculous amount of respect for him. So those types of relationships are cool. But to say that I keep in touch, I'll shoot Kershaw text like on his birthday, or when his mom passed away, or certain things like that. But
Mhm.
I'm very respectful of their time, and also I try to keep things as professional as possible.
Well, I'm sure that also contributes to why everyone speaks so highly of you. I was listening to Eric Hosmer's podcast, which I love, and he was saying that you're a really good friend of his.
I've always loved the Hosmers. I really, and I had no direct connection to Eric or Mike Moustakis or any of those. But I just have always appreciated him, and I've always appreciated his hustle and his work ethic and the way he went about the game. And just over the years, I've always supported him. And when I found out he was retiring, I reached out, and obviously his wife is in the industry too, and she's just friggin' drop dead gorgeous. And I've just always loved their family. And now, he's a dad, he has another one on the way. And it's like, they're like my kids, it's like
Yeah.
these guys, I've seen them when they got drafted, when they came up, when they had their first big league hit, when they got married, when they became a parent, like, it's like, you can't help but just kind of like, they're growing up, I keep getting older. The guys that keep coming up get younger, so it's like, you can't help but feel like you're almost like again, keeping it professional, but like a team big sister. Like Jock Peterson
Yeah.
used to like, starburst at my head, and that was his way
Oh,
of
I remember all Kike's little videos
me.
behind you and making faces and having fun with the interviews.
It's just, you learn their personalities, what makes them tick, when to leave them alone. And we have to remember they're they're people before they're players. And I think they respect that.
Are there any games that stand out to you that you got to be a part of? I mean, you were with them
I mean,
during
there's a
such an
ton.
amazing stretch.
There's a ton. I mean, I've covered 7 no-hitters in person, 3 of which were for teams I was like on covering, and then 4 against the team I was covering. So Clayton's was amazing. Josh Beckett before Clayton. And that was in Philadelphia. The final out of that game was Chase Utley. Chase Utley was still with the Phillies, and Josh Beckett got him to strike out to get the no-hitter.
Oh, wow.
Julio Jimenez with the Colorado Rockies was the first no-hitter I ever covered. That was the first, I think that was the first no-hitter in Rockies history of a Rockies pitcher, not against them, but for them. So a million things like, 4 home runs in an inning, or, just all when Charlie Culberson hit the game winner in San Francisco on Vin's last broadcast.
Yeah.
After Seager tied it up, then Culberson, the most unlikely hero in the world, gets the walk-off, or not walk-off because we were on the road, but the game-winning hit. And there's been a million. I mean, that's what you're so fortunate when you get to be the team reporter for a team that's awesome every single year. It's like, you just don't know what you're going to see. I mean, and that, I think it was the last year I was there. No, probably 19, because there were still fans in the stands. It was like, I feel like there was like 4 or 5 games in a row where it was like a rookie that ended up winning the game in some form or fashion. So there's just
I remember that.
There's been a lot of really cool things that have happened, and just the people that you meet, when Don Newcomb was still alive, just having conversations with him during home games at batting practice, and Sandy Koufax, and just it's an unbelievable organization with an unbelievable amount of history that still treats their former players really well and still embraces them. And it's a good mix of bringing in the new guys and melding them with the old guys, and making sure they understand the traditions and the history of the team. And it was a great, probably 7 greatest years of my life.
Oh, I love hearing that. I mean, for me, moving to LA and being away from my family, becoming a Dodger fan and like having that be my team that I chose, it's really connected me with the city of LA. And when I'm needing a motivation, if I'm not feeling good about something, or if I'm going through it, I watch Dodger highlights.
Yep. Yeah, it's a community. It's a great community. And I mean, there's obviously a lot of history there, and it's a great fan base, and so many people love that team. And there's a lot to enjoy about being a Dodger fan. I think the only thing that stinks about it is trying to get in and out of that stadium.
I know.
But
my podcast partner, who has a full-time job and is not able to come today, we have the debate of whether you stay for the entire game or if you leave early. And I'm kind of someone that will scoot out of there because I would like to avoid the traffic. And she is a hard no. She is staying for every out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Dodgers fans get a bad rap that they arrive late and leave early, but it's like, I said this to Chris Russo the other day. I'm like, have you tried to get to Dodger Stadium on a Friday night game? have you tried
Actually,
to get
you
there?
live in Santa Monica.
It's like, oh, Santa Monica is the worst trying to get to, oh gosh, trying to get to Dodger Stadium from Santa Monica. I lived in Manhattan Beach, but I got to the, I get to the park 4 hours before the game starts. So it's
Yeah.
not, it wasn't an issue for me, but no, I get it. I mean, it's a good community, great fan base.
I mean,
Just a
look
good
at what the fans just did in New York.
Yeah, Pantone 294 is no joke though. You should have Pantone on your podcast. They're unbelievable. They are an unbelievable fan organization.
It's really incredible. I actually reached out to him last year because I rented the shuttle that takes a whole group to the game, which I mean, Dodger fans now created this entire business. Has that ever happened before? It's truly
I don't
incredible.
know about other teams' fan organizations. I do know that Alex's is a for-profit. It is a company. But what they do for their fans, it's pretty incredible. I mean, they take care
What
of
a
all of
weekend they had. They were on the boat on Friday night, then
they take care of all
taking
the
over, marching, led by NYPD. My mom called me because she listens to the Fan in New York, and she's like, Melissa, I have to tell you what they were talking about. Dodger fans are taking over Yankee Stadium. And I'm like, yes, I love to see it.
Well, they did that in 2016. It was we went to Yankee Stadium in 16, and they took over bleachers, and people are like, they didn't know what hit them. They're like, what the hell is this? And yeah, now I mean it's a massive organization now. So good for him. I mean, he started from the bottom, and he's created this into this like mega company, and it's very well run. They do a really good job.
The last thing I just wanted to ask you about, because it's another topic that I really avoid getting into because I don't know all the answers. And it's Dave Roberts. I love him. I think he's a great person. He's a great players coach. And I'm not going to say a bad thing about him because I have so much respect for him and what he does. And he's, has the highest wins of an active manager. He's brought our team to the postseason every year, yet fans hate on him so much. So I'm
Everybody thinks
wondering
they can
what.
do a better job. Everyone thinks that they can manage. Everyone thinks that they're a coach. They can do a better job because they don't think that Dave has been a good postseason manager. I think I love Dave. I'll defend him till the death. Again, there's always going to be criticism when you're managing a team of the caliber of the Dodgers. Everybody expects you to win every single year, and that's just an unrealistic expectation. John Henry of the Boston Red Sox just was quoted in a financial magazine saying that fans think you should win every year, but in reality it's 1 in 20, 1 in 30, which Boston Red Sox fans don't want to hear that. I'm sorry. But yes, Dave does take us to the postseason every year. I love this front office. I have all the faith in the world that Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes and everybody will get the right pieces, the right complement. Dave can't hit, Dave can't defend, Dave can't pitch. Has he made all the right moves? No, but no manager has. And I would take Dave managing a game, maybe with the exception of Bruce Bochy managing a bullpen. I would take Dave in any game.
Yeah. I'm wondering what leash does Dave Roberts have in game, like with decision making, the game plan to making in-game adjustments. I'm just wondering, like, who's making all the decisions?
I mean, Dave has the ultimate say. It's his team. There's input from everybody. Obviously, Andrew has a lot of say, but once the game starts, it's Dave. And I'm not privy to those conversations behind closed doors. I have no idea like how often Andrew is in his ear, like we should have done this. I know that Andrew has a great deal of respect for Dave. I mean, how can you not? To your point, they've gone to the postseason every single year. And they, in my opinion, they should have won the 2017 World Series.
Yes. Oh, don't get me
Not
started.
18, not 18, not 18. Boston was a much better team than LA, but 17, that should have been theirs too. So they could easily have 2 World Series under Dave Roberts' tenure. But that being said, I mean, it is a collaborative effort. But I don't think he's like a puppet, like being pulled like this, as far as decision making is concerned. But yeah, the fans want a World Series every year, or they want to run him out of town. But you have to think about, okay, if you don't want Dave Roberts, who is out there right now that is better?
That's what I always say. I'm just like, all right, then who do you want? Who do you want?
Right. Fans want to make a change, but they don't have a better solution. So that doesn't work. But yeah, I think Dave's a great manager, and I think he just signed an extension. So I think, he'll be there as long as he and Andrew were there together, probably. You know, that's usually how it works. It's like when the president or GM goes out, that's when the manager goes
Well,
out.
we've got Andrew Friedman for a while because isn't him being involved in the Dodgers with Shohei's contract?
That doesn't mean that Andrew gets to stick around. He's the one that signed Shohei. But if Guggenheim says, all right, this, you know, that Shohei's contract has nothing to do with Andrew. I mean, he was the guy that put it together, but I mean, Guggenheim, I mean, Mark Walter was the one that said, you can spend this amount of money. But I think, you know, whoever, let's say there's a new group that comes in and there's a new president of baseball ops or whatever, that guy is going to bring in their guy. So that's the only time I would think that. Same thing like in New York with Brian Cashman. If Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone are tied together, if Hal Steinbrenner gets rid of Cashman, likely Boone is out the door as well. So they're kind of all like all tied together because nobody wants to admit that, you know, that they made a mistake. So it's like they just kind of push them out. It's usually the general manager and the manager that take the fall. It's not, obviously it's not the ownership group. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah. I do also always argue back about when people are complaining about Dave Roberts. Like give the account, who's going to give the accountability to the players in the couple last postseasons.
Well, and that's
why he didn't get up there and couldn't hit the ball.
Well, Mookie, I mean, that's why Mookie was, you know, Mookie admitted he wasn't good the last two postseasons. You know, and that's what Justin was great about. Justin took accountability and, you know, and he also held guys accountable. And that's why, you know, you have a player manager or a player coach in the locker room, in the clubhouse, in the, you know, in the dugout. Because then you want players that are willing to police themselves. I mean, there's nothing worse than constantly having to have team meetings. And you know, the Dodgers don't, because they're good. And they signed a certain character type of player. Once the 2014 season was over, I really feel like they signed really good players, but also really quality character guys too. And that makes a difference.
Yeah. Who do you think there is a Justin Turner leader right now?
I think that's
like they're all kind of leaders.
I think it's Miggy right now. I mean, I would say Kirsch too, but it's hard to be that as a pitcher, and he's not with the team every day right now. I mean, there's a certain understanding and expectation when Clayton Kershaw's in that clubhouse, in that dugout. You better act a certain way.
Oh, I can't wait to have a Kershaw day coming up.
He doesn't even have to say anything. It's just the way he goes about his business. It's like, if this guy does this and puts this effort into it, you better too. You know, I think Miguel is that right now for the position players a little bit. You know, again, I think this is a team. I mean, Freddie's been around a long time. Mookie's been around a long time, but not everybody is like Corey is not that guy. Corey Seager does not like to talk. He doesn't like to be the center of attention. He doesn't like the focus on him. I remember when Cody got called up and Cody was doing really well. Nobody was happier than Corey because then Corey didn't have to answer all the questions and get all the attention. So, you know, this guy's a two-time MVP in a World Series, and he's like, I don't want any, just let me play. Just let me hit. Just like, leave me alone. Always nice, always professional, always respectful, always courteous, but just did not want any attention. So again, and that's one thing Dave Roberts is very good at, is managing different personalities and knowing how to motivate each and every guy, because they're not robots and they're not all motivated by the same thing. Yep.
Well, my last question for you is, are we going to see you at Dodger Stadium?
Oh God, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I'm not right now. I'm not traveling for like I'm not going to the All-Star game in Texas. We'll see. I hope so. I love LA. I love that stadium. I love that organization. So I will let you know. It'll be all over social if when I do go back to LA.
All right. Well, we'll stay tuned for that. Alanna, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking to me. It was so nice to meet you, and go Dodgers.
Yeah, no, that was my pleasure. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.